KYC is know your customer. So when you're an end user, you have to get verified. Date of birth, make sure if you're purchasing products that require date of birth, for example, alcohol in the US requires to be 21, tax information, etc. KYB is understanding who the business is, making sure they're in good standing, their ownership structure is owned by people, so the KYC component, that are in regulations, not on any sanction lists, etc. KYT is making sure that the transactions that are coming to your business, for example in cryptocurrencies, are coming from a clean wallet, has good history, has not been involved in fraud or touched illicit websites. Beneficial ownership is who owns this business and who you're ultimately doing business relationships with. If you have people who own a business and the business looks good at the front of it, but it's owned by people who are criminals or shouldn't be operating this type of business because they've had inept business practices in the past, you want to be able to know that and make a risk-based decision. Some of these, for example, people who are on sanction lists, if they own businesses, companies that are playing in the space like CoinFlow cannot work with these types of entities. Most businesses get KYC wrong by two different ways. One, either they don't do it at all, and then it creates regulatory nightmares. They can't work with partners who check for these things like CoinFlow, or the opposite of it. They don't know the actual proper regulations, so then they go overboard and add a lot of user friction for things that aren't required. For example, not in all circumstances do you need a face scan plus an ID scan to verify someone's date of birth. So if you are adding things that aren't required because you think it might be required, may stop fraud, there's actually better fraud tools like our AI fraud learning model. That is a false choice. You can have both thorough onboarding and fast KYC. You need to understand what the regulatory requirements of what you are doing and meet those requirements. And then if you are adding additional frictions, for example, adding a face scan when a face scan is not required because you want us to prevent fraud, there are better ways to prevent fraud, like using CoinFlow's large learning model to prevent fraud outside of adding additional friction for your good customers and having something that fraudsters can actually pass.